Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Phelim O'Neil with Tom Tynan from Commissioner Hogan's cabinet in Brussels. We're going to talk a little bit about the new agriculture package that's been announced this week, and we'll also update trade discussions, where they've got to and where they're likely to go to. Tom, thanks for the opportunity to speak to the Irish Farmers Journal. If I might ask you first and foremost about the package that was announced on Monday of this week. There's some more details that have to emerge, obviously. It must have been quite a challenge to secure extra money in the budget at this particular time with the migration crisis.
Certainly, Phelim, yeah. Particularly difficult. You'll be aware that about 10 billion has gone towards migration last year and this year. And in addition, another 3 billion will go to Turkey, who provide shelter for about 2.5 million migrants. So against that backdrop, particularly difficult. It's the second package he's negotiated. And I think at the end of the day, it's down to a relationship he has with the Budget Commissioner. And he said all the way through the process that this package would be conditional and would be structural. And when you look closely at that, there are conditionalities around it, and it is structural in the sense of the 150 million towards the supply adjustment.
It's going to mean, I think, roughly about 11 million potentially for Ireland that we can go for. How do you see that helping the industry?
Well, last year in September, it was in excess of 13 million, because obviously it was a 420 million package on the payment side, and then the national government matched that. And Ireland made a decision that it was going to be, allocated almost on a check basis. On this occasion, it'll be conditional in the sense that we want to see the money used to make the industry more competitive, whatever form that takes, and also to look at the supply side closely as well. So there's an awful lot that can be done on a menu option basis.
Is it exclusively for dairy?
Not exclusively, no, and the Commissioner made that clear on Monday as well, because I know that the beef industry, just as a case in point, and the pig industry previously, although they were part of the last package, as you remember, and we had a couple of APS schemes on the pig meat side, and we've come through that crisis, which is very good. No, the opportunity is there, the flexibility is there on a member state basis. If they want to put funding in particular areas, they can certainly do that.
Turning to trade talks, there's a number of trade talks, I suppose, at various stages of progress. The most recent that we're aware of, the TTIP had its most recent round of discussions last week. Where do you see TTIP heading at this stage, given that America is now very much moving into election mode?
Well, I think Commissioner Hogan has been clear on this for a number of months, exactly as you say, with the election backdrop, particularly with the positions both candidates have taken, specifically in relation to TPP and on trade generally. I think nothing's going to happen very quickly in relation to TTIP now.
So you sense that it is moving towards the back burner to some extent?
Yeah, I think
they're still struggling to get the deal with the Pacific countries ratified, isn't that right?
TPP, yes, they're still struggling to get that ratified, and that will involve the United States and Japan ratifying it, because you have to have 60%. So TPP is a slow process as regards agreement. And TTIP's behind that somewhere. Correct.
I know the Commissioner has been doing a fair bit in Asia, in China and Japan, and I know that discussions are ongoing with Japan, the free trade agreement. What kind of progress are we making there, do you sense?
The Commissioner felt that Japan, he had a real engagement, a real political engagement, in terms of he knew where the landing ground was. Now, earlier this week, he had another engagement with the Japanese. They were over here, actually, one of the trade negotiators, and it went very, very well. The Commissioner, he would drive forward an agenda. He would always be ambitious in terms of what he's trying to achieve. His objective here would be to get an FTA with Japan in the first half of next year. It may be seen as ambitious, but if you're not ambitious in this place, you don't achieve anything.
I think from an agricultural perspective that would be very welcome, because I think there would be various opportunities there, and particularly in pig meat, dairy and beef.
Correct.
So that would be one of the more welcome trade deals if it were to come off.
It would fail him. And the other thing about it, which doesn't concern Ireland obviously, but it's a big part of trade negotiation, is the whole question of GIs. Geographical indicators. Yeah. The Japanese recognise our GIs, and that's very important. Whereas in TTIP, the Americans are hostile, very hostile on GIs, as you know.
Yeah, and that leaves then Mercosur, which would have caused great concern in Ireland back in the early months of this year. Do you sense it's going to progress, or how is that likely to go forward?
I think political instability in South America, and a couple of those countries in South America, is a factor here as well. And I think, it'll be slower. But obviously from an Irish and European beef perspective, the concern that was there earlier in the year, I think the Commissioner played a fairly major part in providing some comfort there.
And finally, can't let the occasion pass, Brexit has happened, although many of us probably, coming certainly from an Irish perspective, would have preferred that it didn't. We have to deal with the reality now. How do you see that unfolding in the time ahead? How do you see the exit process working? What type of trade arrangement can you visualise emerging from that?
Well, I suppose the first thing I'd echo what you said as regards disappointment. Obviously, the Commissioner visited all 4 parts of the UK, made the case as regards why they should remain. 2 things I'd say. The UK is a vital market for Ireland, as we know, but it's also vital that the UK and the European Union have a good working trading relationship. And I think the aim and objective going forward will be to achieve that. Obviously, the thing has to settle now. You have a new Prime Minister. I don't think Article 50 will be punched anytime soon. I think it'll probably be the early part of next year. And then that process will start. And I'd say the best case you could make would be 2020, which would sort of fit in with the next MFF, 20 to 27. I certainly don't think anything will happen sooner than that. And in the meantime, from an Irish perspective, it's important, very, very important, that those relationships are strong. And I can assure you here at a European level, Commissioner Hogan has been very clear with farmers in the UK and the industry in the UK. From our perspective, it's business as usual. The UK remain a member of the European Union with all the benefits that flow from that. And he will continue to articulate strongly on behalf of the UK farmers and industry.
Tom Tynan from the Cabinet of Commissioner Hogan, thank you very much.
Thanks.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.